A new Mandalorian episode is here. Chapter 18, titled The Mines of Mandalore, and this new chapter is continuing the Mandalorian's new adventure, basically to redeem himself in the living waters of the mines, and then return to his cult. The episode gives us a fascinating look into the planet of Mandalore and what's happened to it, and may set up some future plot points along the way. We'll talk about this at the end of this review. This is our full review of The Mandalorian Chapter 18, as such you are being warned for spoilers, turn away now. Oh, and a quick reminder, make sure to comment your opinions in the comment section below. This is the way after all. Greetings my young Padawans, my name is Captain Jack and welcome to Star Wars Now. Use the force and hit that subscribe and like button to never miss a video from myself and the team here at Star Wars Now. As always, if you're talking about Star Wars, we want to hear about it. Okay, the episode starts with a return to Tatooine during Boonta Eve, the celebration of which we saw a part of during the Phantom Menace, with Din going to Penimotto to find the IG memory circuit. This is all fine, and nothing too noteworthy. Though, instead of getting an IG memory circuit, Din just gets his astromech port on the ship redone and given R5-D4, the droid with a bad motivator. This seems somewhat weird from a storytelling perspective to set up a bunch of stuff around the IG droid, back on Navarro with the Anzelians and Grief, then just not require it in the first place. We do finally find out the reason why he needed the IG droid, to take atmospheric samples in the mines to make sure it's safe, basically a canary in a mine, if you will. It's quite a mundane reason to acquire a droid. Does the ship not have sensors, or man its own helmet, or can you not just get a handheld device? We even let us see that Din's suit can be pressurized, so this could have brought a hand scanner, it's one of those things. The crux of this episode takes place on Mandalore, and I have to say, I love it. Seeing the environment after what we've seen in Rebels and the Clone Wars, with this arid dusty desert with magnificent domed cities, now essentially reduced to green glass along its surface, is amazing. I will say, this does look like an improvement over the desert, but from its fusion bombs bombarding the surface, it's not really the intended effect to make it look cool. Native to these caves, caverns, and the ruins of Mandalorian cities are these bipedal monsters called Alamites. It's said these creatures lived in the wastelands outside of the city, but I guess when everyone died or moved away, they moved into the ruins. From their green eyes, and the green eyes of a native fauna on the planet, I assume they somehow adapted to the toxic atmosphere of the planet to survive. It's a nice little detail on the Alamites that they do use weapons, made up of green glass which is abundant on Mandalore now. So they adapt well to their environment, kinda makes sense. The Mandalorian cities are now ruins, and they're breathtakingly haunting to look at, though it isn't just cave trolls and other creatures on the planet, as Din actually gets captured by this bio-robotic entity who has this giant mech seemingly used to kidnap people, and Grogu has to go and get help from Bo-Katan. It's a bit cliche, but kind of fun. I have to say, having Grogu separated from Mando doing his own little adventure is actually very cool, though still non-verbal, being able to tell an astromech droid where to go, and then go and get Bo's help, is kind of really cool. We also get a lot of force jumping backflips from Grogu, which is probably just some of his usable thing Luke taught him during their Jedi training. And as Peely points out, he does appear to be saying words. Well, not actually, but he's getting closer, and we do know he's going to talk at some point. At first, not able to realise it's just Grogu in the Mandalorian ship, it seems like Bo-Katan just wants to wallow in self-pity. As we saw and were told last episode, all her forces left her when she failed to return with the Darksaber, and now all she wants to do is left alone in a vacant castle. Despite this, seeing that Mando may be in danger, she immediately jumps to action and goes to Mando to help. Bo-Katan is a very fascinating character because she always had this facet to her. In a lot of instances, she goes her own way in painting herself as the villain, i.e. joining Death Watch, capturing Ahsoka. Then in a lot of other instances, she still cares about a lot of people, her sister, and now caring enough to help Mando on his fool of a mission as she calls it. She is able to somewhat easily defeat the bio-robotic kidnapper, using the Darksaber and even fighting this mech. The design of the mech and the kidnapper are super cool, and even after defeating the kidnapper, his head detaching and going into the mech is just weird but fun. Also, the goal of being able to drain the fluid out of its prey, I guess it has a living on Alamites until it found something that didn't drain, kinda makes sense, bit weird though. It does seem like we'll get a lot of Bo this season. In a recent interview, Katie Sackhoff said she really loved episode 5, so we'll see how integral she is to the rest of season 3's story, but so far, she's very important. Bo guides Mando to the Mines of Mandalore, which have these very ornate entranceway to it, and we know a little bit about Bo's father, which is also be Duchess Satine's father as well, and how strict he was, and there's some interesting dynamics between the two. Din is still extremely geared towards his cult, and when hearing that Bo's father died fighting for Mandalore, he just says, "This is the way." No sorry for your loss or anything, just very cultish. Upon reaching the living waters, Bo gives a little speech about its importance, that it used to be the lair of the mythosaur, the symbol of the Mandalorian people, and the first Mandalore, Mandalore the Great, tamed this mythosaur. With the emphasis on the mythosaur, I think it's safe to expect that in a future episode we will see this, even though we sort of see it now. And perhaps even Din or maybe even Grogu might be able to tame it. The Book of Boba Fett was able to tame a raging rancor, with Boba Fett obviously, so taming a mythosaur might be a step up, but if anyone can do it, it's probably Grogu. Din doesn't really pay attention to the speech Bo is giving, as he strips off his weapons, proceeding to say the words of a creed and walk into the living water. For some reason, he suddenly gets pulled underwater, and we don't see why or why not. It is a bit confusing. Bo goes under the water to save him, but then the episode just abruptly ends. But we do see the monster hidden here, and it's safe to bet this is probably the mythosaur. How they survive underwater, I don't know. I didn't think they were aquatic species. I'm sure this is going to be expanded on in the next episode, but it seems to be a very abrupt end, and obviously with the monster discovery, this will probably set up the next story of episode 4 and 5 and onwards. Overall, I enjoyed this episode. I found myself both loving and being confused by some of the decisions at the same time, which sometimes makes for great storytelling. Having last episode set up the return of the IG droid to help Mando, and then just using a different droid, and having the droid be the bad motivated droid seemed a weird decision to me. I guess we will get to see the IG droid later this season, because they won't just want to waste that setup. But for an element that was set up for this very purpose, it just seems weird they didn't follow through with it, but I'm sure Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had some reasoning behind it. However, if the IG droid was present on Mandalore, we wouldn't have gotten some great Grogu content this episode. Sending Grogu off on his own, on the mission to save Din, was really cool, and it showed us an aspect of the show which really hasn't done before, seeing Grogu use the Force in his pod to get back to the ship and defeat enemies along the way. It's some great development for this little guy, and really reinforces some of the creative comments around Mandalore in Season 3. This being Grogu's Force powers have really been amplified since we last saw him in Season 2. From essentially a damsel in distress in the first episode and season of the show to now Grogu, they've come pretty far. Having Bo-Katan be somewhat central this episode was really cool, but seeing her fight with a Darksaber, her arsenal of Mandalorian weapons, and that tiny force shield thing she has is really cool. Also, against a spider crab mech, it's interesting, okay? She may have featured in the last episode, but only for a cameo, and I'm interested where the season will go for her right now. She is obviously very disapproving of Mando's cult and the Children of the Watch overall. Speaking of overall, I am loving what the season is offering. We're only 2 episodes in, and I'm massively looking forward to what the next episode will bring. I got confused earlier, 3, 4, and 5, you get what I mean. Don't forget, we've also got the Bad Batch Season 2 airing right now, and both shows will take a Wednesday spotlight for a few weeks and run alongside each other. The second season of The Bad Batch will wrap up before the third season of The Mandalorian, so luckily the show gets some breathing room, not that it needs it, but you see what we mean. Okay, Exalted Ones, that's for myself on Star Wars Now. Stick around, we've got plenty of content coming up to take apart this week's episode in a few days. You don't want to miss this, it's going to be awesome. That's it for myself today, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you very soon. I've been Captain Jack, and may the Force be with you.